Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to WoW Killer. I am Garrett, here as always with Taliesin. Welcome back, sir.
Welcome to the show. Hooray, episode 8. That's like 2 months worth of episodes.
It is 2 months worth of episodes.
That's a solid sixth of a year right there. That's pretty awesome.
Hell yeah, man. We did it. We got to 8. Let's
that was my ambition. I thought, you know, if I can get to 8 episodes of this podcast, I can retire a happy man. So that's it. That's the end. Once this is finished, we're gone forever.
See, I thought it was our
see this podcast next week because it won't be here. Not now we've done our 8 weeks.
It won't be here next week. So I'm traveling next week, everybody.
I never lie.
So don't expect a new WoW Killer next Wednesday because I will be on an airplane next Wednesday, actually coming back home from a thing. Can't say what the thing is, but you know, that's the life. That's the life of NDAs. That's how they work. I can tell you that there won't be a show, and I can tell you that I won't be here, and that's why the show won't be here, but I can't tell you where I'm going or why.
I know where you're going. I don't.
You don't actually. I haven't told you.
I kind of do. Is it BlizzCon?
Is it BlizzCon? That would be great if they changed BlizzCon to be an NDA thing that happens randomly without a public-facing admission or announcement.
Blizzard hate their fans so much now that not only is every game they release terrible and a cheap money grab, but they won't even let people into BlizzCon anymore unless they're special invitation shills like you, your own personal BlizzCon.
Yes, so I'll be going.
And you'll be like, "Oh, it was the best BlizzCon ever," but you would say that, wouldn't you?
Chat room's calling it Secret BlizzCon. Yes, I'm going to Secret BlizzCon, everyone. Going to Secret BlizzCon, where there will, I'm sure, be a lot of fluorescent lighting.
And do you know what, Garrett? I'm sure you'll still probably try and cut the queue.
Oh, is that a callback to an interview we did yesterday that hasn't posted yet?
I'm calling back to our own personal history together.
Everyone, we did a realm maintenance interview yesterday. So yeah, that's you. If you think 8 episodes makes it you feel like you've made it as a podcaster, for me it's we've done the realm maintenance interview. That's when I'm like, oh, the podcast is a thing now. I'm not sure
saying 8 episodes makes me feel like I've made it as a podcaster. More like, you know, I'm further to the light at the end of the tunnel. In the same way that, you know, if I've been in jail for 8 days, I don't think like I've made it as a prisoner. I've just been there for a long time. Oh, I made it to 8 days in this jail, everyone. I've made it as a prisoner now. I'm amazing. That's kind of how I feel about it. That's how I feel about episode 8, to be frank.
Well, as a podcaster, you just go up to the biggest. It's prison rules. You go up to the biggest podcaster you can, and you punch them with an opinion about their podcast.
Yeah, you go up to the biggest podcaster you can find, and you go, "What is your hottest take about a national issue?"
Yeah. Hey, Scott Johnson.
Give me a soundbite, Johnson.
How do you feel about all these Democrats dropping out of the presidential race? How do you feel about it?
I want you to sum up the corruption system in a reverent, witty, yet informative way in no more than 20 words. Go. You think you're so good?
Awesome.
Go on, Pops. What you got?
Well, Tally, as we kind of decided in the middle of the episode last week, today we are here to take emails from our lovely listeners that have written into wowkillercast@gmail.com. That is where you, fine listener, listening to this voice in your very ears, can write in and be a part of the show. And we've amassed so many that we're not going to fit them all into today's episode, but we figured maybe we should consider doing one of these a month and actually taking some emails.
Yeah, and not. I want you to understand, Garrett. Not because it's a cheap and easy episode to do. Not because of that. We are a single topic World of Warcraft podcast, and today's topic is you and the mailbag.
It's your topic.
That's the official topic. That's what we're doing. And if you don't like the questions that we answer today, if you think it's really boring or whatever, well, that's your fault for not writing any better questions. So think about that. When you're criticizing this show later on, when you're giving it 1 star, doesn't matter how many stars you give it. Good reviews aren't good. Like, that mean nothing on iTunes. Go ahead, be my guest. But if you think it's terrible, you're going to have to take some of those. At some point, the community has to look at itself and go, we have to bear some of this blame. And I think that's essentially definitely true when it comes to questions that you don't like in the Q&A. So if you don't like these questions, easy answer. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, write some good questions, send them in, and the next mailbag episode we do will be better. I'm not selling this episode very well, am I?
I mean, in a less defensive way, I would say I'm really excited to talk about these questions. And they were wonderful.
I like the approach you're taking on this better. I think you're doing. You can tell that you are the more experienced podcaster, and I appreciate that. It's good. This is a learning experience. You know what this is? Okay, so I'm new in jail, and you're like the guy who's been in jail for a very long time, and also you've been in like so many different jails. Like you're kind of like quite well known on the jail circuit.
Why is podcasting like a jail in this?
And you're really well known on the jail circuit. So you're basically you're like Morgan Freeman in the Shawshank Redemption right now, and and also in loads of other ways. And you're taking me under your wing, and you're showing me how like the jail system works and how to survive it. And that's basically what's going on here. And I appreciate that because I was quite scared of jail when I first got here, but you've made it a more pleasurable experience.
Oh, okay. See, my brain, I was thinking like the jail kingpin. Like you need extra credits for commissary. Yeah, I can help you with that.
No, you're more like the skivvy. You know the people to talk to get like the shank if you need it.
Oh well, I mean, if this is podcasting, I know who to talk to get you like a pop filter. You need a pop filter.
Yeah. You don't decide who gets shanked though.
You need to stop saying so many times in between trying to get your thought
absolutely.
out.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true. But it's also kind of like my catchphrase, and you know. Do have quite a successful YouTube channel, so that's what I'll kind of use as my evidence.
Wonderful. Well, let's get to it. Let's crack open this mailbag. Again, you can write in wowkillercast@gmail.com, and we're going to start today from Ant Archon. Oh man, now I want it to be like Alien Ant Archon. This is going to be a band from Proudmoore, hailing from Proudmoore, Taliesin. And they write.
Have you ever been to Proudmoore? What kind of server is that? Have you been to as many servers as you have jails? What's Proudmoore like?
I've been to a lot of servers. I haven't been to Proudmoore.
Can we trust this guy?
Oh, I don't know about Proudmoore. I hear.
You know, is he some like Draenor edgelord, or are we talking like a Moonguard pervert, or what kind of server is Proudmoore?
I'm good. I can't speak to Proudmoore, but I can speak to Ant Archon and say I think they're really into bears. There's a lot of Zulamon talk in here.
Nice.
They got a bear thing.
You're among friends here, dude.
Okay, cool. Well, Ant Archon writes, Dear Garrett and Taliesin. Love when people actually start with dear. Over on the Angry Chicken, we've got like Mimi. They call us like cluckers, or they say, you know, deer, and then whatever word for chickens they can come up with.
Well, we don't have a catchphrase on this show, do we?
We don't. I mean, we could be deer killers of WoW, and then you can come up with like creative ways to say that we are killing WoW. That's how you could address us.
I was actually thinking about this when we were doing our Realm podcast interview yesterday, and I said something which I think could become our catchphrase that we say at the end of episodes. Because I don't think I'm teaching you something now, old timer. I don't think that a podcast is really a podcast unless you've got like a catchphrase. Okay, so you know. Like some catchphrase, some podcasts will start with like, is it Convert to Raid that starts, Welcome home, Raiders, you know, and that, and then like, you know, the instance finishes with Job's done.
That's the Angry Chicken. The instance, I don't think actually ends with anything in particular.
Ready to work. I could start it like that, and then
I just watched your weekly reset.
There we go. That's what I was looking for.
Job's done.
There we go.
Job's done.
But it's not the end of the podcast. We can't do it. Anyway, the catchphrase I was thinking of was, sorry for people only listening to the podcast, that was my Warcraft 3 Reforged soundbox that Blizzard sent me. It's brilliant. It's got loads of cool stuff in it.
Frostborn hungers.
That's my favorite one. Anyway, so I was thinking that our catchphrase could be, thank you for being at WoW Killer. Don't forget, WoW is dead, and we killed it.
So are you saying that the catchphrase is WoW is dead and we killed it?
Yeah. And I think we should be proud of that. Because, listen, think about it. Okay, you might not like it now, but in years to come, when WoW actually is dead, if we repeat, if the world has taught me anything in the last, couple of years, it's that if you repeat a lie enough, it becomes truth. Okay. So in years to come, when WoW is actually dead, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will think that we killed it. If we just tell people for a long time that we killed WoW, even when it's not dead, when WoW does actually die, we can say, see, I told you. And loads of people might think that we actually killed WoW. And that's a claim to fame right there.
So you really just want to be the king of the WoW wasteland when the apocalypse comes.
I want to have a place in WoW history, and I'm never going to be a world first raider. So if I can be remembered as the man that killed WoW, something in it.
I like it. I like it. As you wander the wastelands, which I would imagine look a lot like Vol'dun, as the king of the killing of WoW, you'll feel a great sense of pride.
Yeah, totally. And they'll be like, oh God, what did kill WoW in the end? They'll be like Garrett and Taliesin.
So Antarchon writes.
Okay, you know what, Garrett? I'm sensing you don't like the catchphrase, and that's okay. The jury is still out. I'm going to think of some more ones. Don't worry.
Killing WoW one episode at a time.
I will think of killing WoW one episode at a time. That's good. That's really good. I'd like people's ideas for our catchphrase. I like that one, though. Killing WoW one episode at a time. Sounds a bit macabre, but I like it. Let's do it. Anyway, I think you should read this question. Why are you trying to distract from this question?
I don't know. But Antarchon wants to know, which WoW patch do we wish lasted longer? And then went into a pretty deep dive about their thoughts on this. And I'll give you a summary for the sake of expediency.
Yeah, because I started reading this question and then I thought, no, Garrett's going to read this. And he's got such a lovely voice that I'll just listen to it when Garrett reads it.
Yeah. And in short, Antarchon says that 2.3, the Gods of Zul'Aman, is the patch that they wish lasted longer. And I would also say that I think they may also think this might be the best patch because in their opinion, also just factually, Zul'Aman added a catch-up mechanic in the form of a new raid. And because it added the secondary stat haste, even raiders that didn't need a catch-up mechanic had a reason to go through and play to fill in haste into a couple of slots. And so the question is...
Sounds legit.
Yeah, which patch would have lasted longer? And I did not remember 2.3 as fondly. I do have very fond Zul'Aman memories, but they're not that fond because I didn't get my burr.
Oh, so basically your memory of that patch is tainted by your own failure. Which I think is unfair on the patch, to be honest, Garrett.
Yes, it is. Yes, it very much is. But Taliesin, if following fandom in video games has taught me anything, it's that personal hang-ups are the entire reason to light something on fire.
Fair enough. Sounds legit. So, okay, if you wouldn't extend after that incredibly detailed and defense of the patch, which you've just thrown out the window and discarded, and what patch would you make last longer?
I mean, entirely selfishly, Secrets of Ulduar. I just wanted, personally. So I have a personal and then a slightly wider reaching anecdotal experience, which is, that personally I swapped to the Horde when Ulduar had just released, so I was kind of coming in half-cocked and needing to get caught up, and then started finally progressing through the raid. But also wider reaching, and anecdotally, a lot of folks I knew and like other raid groups within our guild, they still like wanted everyone was trying to get to Algalon. It felt like everyone wanted just a little bit more time to really, put the cap on Ulduar.
It was a vast raid as well. I mean, just from a kind of like walking around it point of view, even when I can one-shot everything in there now, it still takes me ages. Like, it's still a serious commitment to go into Ulduar, and that's with literally one-shotting everyone with a power, with like a shadow word pain, So, yeah, I can imagine. How long was that patch out for? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I have no clue. That was so long ago, and I don't have it up in front of me. But at this time, and again, my personal experience was a little rushed because it's when I faction swapped. That's when I went Horde. But I remember being like, "Oh my God, TOC is already here!" It's just bam, there we go. Now there was a wind up to TOC, which kind of made Ulduar feel like it had a little bit of extra time. But
so I watched this morning. I watched a new interview with Ian Hazakostas from Warcraft Radio. And it's a really, really good interview. It's fantastic. It's like kind of the opposite of any interview I would ever conduct, where the host is very respectful of Ian and lets him talk quite a lot. And Ian said in that interview, when asked, that he considers 6 months in between raid tiers to be a good amount of time, and that anything less than that is not long enough. To which I say, damn you, everyone who complained about that in Legion. This is all your fault. Damn you, everyone who complained about 7.1 coming out too quickly after 7.0. This is all your fault. We had the perfect release schedule in Legion, which has now been ruined by the likes of you. And now we're looking at 6 months in between raid tiers. And I don't love that.
Ooh,
I don't love that at all.
I'm not advocating for that. I think
but
I don't like that kind of stuff. Like, it's fine, whatever. Hazakostas obviously knows far more about this than I do, and probably is.
The buck stops with him. That's the important thing. If he says 6 months in between raid tiers, my friend, that's what's going to happen.
And I was assuming
that's the official word. He said it. It came out of his beautiful, perfect mouth, and that's what's going to happen from now on. 6 month raid tiers. Yeah, and because it's Blizzard, that means we're really looking at like 7 month raid tiers, and. Basically, it's all your fault if you complained about 7.1, and I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy.
I when I hear things like that from devs, I always assume in the back of my mind, it's like they probably have. I bet that opinion is also based off of internal statistics. I bet Hazakostas has many times looked at the percentage of the player base that have cleared the raid, or I would assume you're also looking at when do they just stop, when they're not even bothering to go in anymore. And that's probably when they look at it and go, oh, it's probably time to, this is probably about when we would like the next raid to come out. And maybe that's 6 months. Maybe on average, most people just stop around maybe the 5 month mark. That's when they start. Who knows? I mean, I'm pulling this out of thin air. The other thing, though, is I tend to take umbrage with comments like that, because I go, that sounds arbitrary. Why 6 months? It should be based on the raid. And now
maybe, but I think if Legion proved anything, it's that in my mind, at least, there is an optimal amount of time for a patch. Like a patch lasting 77 days is absolutely perfect for me. I think a major patch should be planned to last 77 days. I think that's the absolute kind of maximum that you can expect new content to stay interesting and relevant for, and they should aim, like they did in Legion, to keep updating every 77 days. Now, obviously, a new raid only comes like every other one of those major patches on average, but I think the flow was really, really good. You should feel like you haven't had time to completely exhaust everything in a patch before the new patch releases. There should be like an element of, well, the next patch is coming up, so I should be doing this. And it shouldn't be a case of we release the next patch when your eyes are bleeding and you can't possibly run Eternal Palace one more time. And you actually kind of actively hate it a little bit. And I think the proof of the pudding is in recent times, you can compare 8.2 with 7.2. And 8.2, I would say, an objectively better patch than 7.2, with way more content in it, way better made, well better designed, similarly good raids. And yet people have a much better feeling about 7.2 than they do 8.2. And that's because 7.2 was only around for 77 days. And 8.2 had to stick around for a whole lot longer. This is a little bugbear of mine, a little hang-up. So anyway, it doesn't really matter, the official word is.
It was an open invitation to go play Classic. I don't know what you're complaining about. I really don't.
I guess you would have wanted the opening Classic patch to stick around for a little bit longer so you could have got to max level, right? Maybe I wouldn't be sitting here talking to someone without a max level Classic tune if that had been the case.
What level is your tune?
46. I'm happy with that. I'm not the one sitting here going, oh, so glad Classic released, although I am.
Still had a good time.
So I kind of feel bad wishing a patch to last longer, we talk in kind of reverent tones about how kind of early WoW was non-linear in the way its raids worked, and that thing of like when a new raid came out, it didn't completely make every other raid that came before it completely irrelevant and sort of replace the content that was already in the game. And I think that having a swift release schedule kind of helps that, because, if the new raid comes out when you haven't quite finished with the old raid and there's still stuff you want to get in that for your progression, then doesn't that help towards that kind of feeling?
Oh yeah, we went back to Ulduar during TOC to fill in a couple slots because there were certain things that were randomized a little bit better in certain cases at the level we were rating at. And it was fine. I just thought this was a bit of a fun question, and so Ulduar just
absolutely
pops in front of my mind.
I do have it. So.
Yeah, I like your point about you think it's good to not have everything finished when a new patch comes out, and I'm with you. And to me, that ties into like my kind of rosier feelings of things like Classic and earlier WoW expansions that were non-linear. And I've talked about it so many times before. Like when we talked about like the history of raids. Or our history with raiding, and you asked me about vanilla, and I was like, well, I didn't have max level, which is, again, to my Classic experience, I'm just reliving my glory days of not being max level, Taliesin, and I don't know what you're talking about. This is what I got in to do.
That's how you're doing your nostalgia. Yeah, I
exactly,
get it.
Exactly. But, and I said, it like, I have really fond memories of learning about raiding through the world and through people, shouting LFG in trade chat, and then Nixia's head just randomly showing up and not knowing what the hell that even meant. And to me, I think a new patch coming out and you having a sense of FOMO about what you didn't accomplish when the new when the new patch hits. I think that to me that's stronger, and that builds a sense of wonder in a larger world than a sense of, oh, thank God it's here. I've literally done everything.
Yeah, and I also think that apart from anything, it gives you a safety net of if you don't quite click with the new patch, then you've still got stuff from the patch that you liked to finish off. It's not a case of you need the new patch to release so you have something to do. And people talk a lot, and I heard this a lot when 7.1 was coming out. People talk a lot about being overwhelmed. I think being overwhelmed is one of the best things that can happen to you in an MMO. Like, that feeling when you step out of, the jail in Oblivion and you feel overwhelmed by the size of the world in front of you when you first log into an MMO and you're nowhere near max level, and you know that all of the game is in front of you at this stage. That feeling of being overwhelmed is kind of where the magic comes from in an RPG like that. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
No, I don't either. I mean, I think it probably depends on the type of player that you are. I'm sure if you are a like hardcore completionist, it's probably the worst thing in the world. But
yeah, maybe. But I mean, yeah, okay, fine. If you're a hardcore completionist, like you should have caught up in the lull at the end of Warlords of Draenor, and it should be a simple patch by patch basis for you now. But that's the thing, isn't it? Like the last patch of an expansion is always the longest one. So that's when you catch up on stuff. Like that's when I think about, going back and finishing off my Lore Master. That's when I think about, collecting mounts that I didn't care about for the rest of the expansion and things like that. And that's what that lull is for. But when the expansion is kind of like alive and active and progressing, I love that feeling of being overwhelmed. And I don't think it's a problem if new patches come out before most people could have reasonably finished everything in the patch.
It certainly makes me feel, I am definitely the type of player that feels generally more positive towards World of Warcraft when I can't do everything, because it feels like, oh, cool, there's always something more. And when I get bored with one thing, I can start focusing on something else. Right now, I'm actually enjoying the loop of doing my dailies and running Horrific Visions, which I wasn't expecting. I tend to not really be a big World Quest or daily fan, but I'm rather enjoying it. I do wish I could do a little bit less, because I want to go on some transmog runs. I miss doing transmog runs. That's the thing I like to go do. That's like my personal WoW thing. But it's fine. It's a good thing. The world feels bigger for me right now, and that's when I'm kind of the happiest in World of Warcraft. So,
all of this super interesting talk that we've just done, I do actually have an answer for the question. And it's a slightly weird answer. It's not quite answering the question, but if there was a patch that I could make last longer, it would have been the War of Thorns, simply because it was really good and it's not in the game anymore, like many pre-patch events. It's now completely disappeared. But unlike most pre-patch events, now War of Thorns was the pre-patch for BFA, and told the story of the Horde attack on Teldrassil. And over the course of 2 weeks, told that story. And, if you were Horde, you took part in the attack. If you were Alliance, you took part in the defense. And then that concluded the next week with all the stuff with Tyrande and Saurfang and the actual burning of the tree itself. Now, whatever you think of that as a story, and I know that you have quite strong views on that, I think it's a shame that that's not in the game anymore. You can't go and get footage of it. You can't go and see it for yourself. And it was like a really interesting approach to a pre-patch in general. It wasn't like a repeatable event like the Legion invasions or the Scourge invasions. It wasn't a complete non-event like the Walls of Draenor intro and pre-patch. It was a genuine kind of setup to the events, which kind of kickstarted everything that happened next, which went into, in the third week of the pre-patch, the Battle of Lordaeron, which was also a pre-patch event, but is still in the game and now acts as an intro to the to the expansion in general. Now, when you get to BFA in the roll call of expansions as you're playing through and leveling, the Battle of Lordaeron is the thing that sets it up. But that was only week 3 of the pre-patch. You know, that was a week before launch that the Battle of Lordaeron happened. So it's cool that that's still in the game. It's a shame that War of Thorns isn't. So whereas I wouldn't necessarily have wanted War of Thorns to last longer, I would have liked it if it hadn't been completely removed. And I guess you could say the same about, the other events like from Wrath and the assault on Undercity with Sylvanas and or Jaina and Varian if you were Alliance.
Yeah.
And sort of going and taking on Varamathras in that way. I'd like it if those events were still doable.
I mean, they've been dropping, it's not Chromie. What's the rando dragon that no one cares about that takes us back to older versions of Zones?
Yeah.
They've been peppering her all around the world. Why not have a few more of her to take us back to some of these events?
Totally. And there's a part of it being a limited time thing that you can't repeat, which makes it very exciting and feel like, I was there at the War of Thorns. I fought in the War of Thorns. Were you there? Well, no, I wasn't playing that week. Oh, well, there you are then. I'm a veteran of it. You're not. And I get the appeal of that and I like that. But in answer to the question, it'd be nice to be able to go back and see that stuff again.
Yeah. Certain things aside, I rather enjoyed the War of Thorns as well. It was an event for sure. You want to take the next email from Sam?
Yes. Wait a minute. Okay, Sam. Well, I don't know, man. This one starts, "Hey, Garrett." So I might annoy Sam by reading this one myself. But I guess if I read it, I'm asking it to you. "Hey, Garrett."
Yes, Tally.
This is exactly how Sam sounds, by the way, as well. This is actually a really good impression of Sam. I'm quite well known for my Sam impression. And it's uncanny. So anyway, just got finished listening to the latest episode and I really liked it. Comparing the 0.3 patches was interesting. It also got me thinking about a future episode ranking the expansions. Did we do that?
No,
we haven't. Okay, no, Sam knows the show better than me. That's fine. I'm not reading the email right now. This is my own kind of personal response to it. But anyway, this is me reading the email again now. After playing 8.3, something occurred to me, and I would like both you and Tally's take on it. Oh, okay, I'm allowed in this conversation now. Thanks, Sam. Right, question 1. I played all patches in BFA, and each one improved the expansion, in my opinion, although it will probably go down as the most underwhelming expansion after WoD. I think this is due to 2 major reasons. It did not innovate much from Legion. It actually regressed in a way with pruning and hasn't been able to recover from the Azerite armor design. Azerite armor was supposed to replace artifacts, tier gear, and legendaries from Legion. It was nonsensical from the beginning. I do think that the system would have worked if instead of constantly getting gear with the same Azerite talents on it, they would have just worked like essences from the beginning. I totally agree. You would collect them from all the sources. Each new season raids ones would come out. The talents would scale with gear. It would have been so simple. The essence and corruption systems would have completed the Azerite system very well. Sam, there's no question mark in this paragraph that I've just read. Where's the question in question 1?
That might have been my fault because I did break these down into 2 thoughts and mark them as question 1 and 2.
Well, that was thought 1. That was thought 1. Okay, so do you want to spend a moment on
I think
that,
they kind of wanted,
Garrett?
Sam wanted our take on that.
Yeah,
which,
I get it.
You
hey,
agree.
Garrett, what's your take on that?
I also agree. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much
essence is, as much as I don't love how they were implemented because I'm still catching up like a mofo on essences in the 0.2 patch. That was exactly how I expected the necklace to work when it was announced, coming out of Legion, going into BFA. I'm like, oh, it's just like it's a replacement for the artifact weapon. It's going to be a place where we like get new abilities and stuff. I know they mentioned Azerite armor, but my brain just went, no, I already understand. That's not a thing. And then I'm like, wait, no, it's this arbitrary thing I have to level up to unlock things on 3 pieces of armor. And there's definitely certain things on certain armor that are going to be infinitely better than others. And also sometimes I might just get the same damn traits over and over again as I'm replacing gear. It's still needlessly obtuse, even though at this point, there's some Azerite armor traits I really, really like. I really like it.
The problem with Azerite armor was never the actual individual traits. Like, too many of them are passive. Not nearly enough of them kind of change your rotation or anything like that, which isn't great when combined with the pruning and the loss of tier sets. Sam is quite right. Congratulations, Sam. Yeah, exactly. So, it was always billed as a replacement to these things. So when the Azerite traits hit and they weren't kind of like an extra button in your rotation or a way that you change something in your rotation, then it's not replacing the things properly that it was intended to replace. But that's like a minor problem with Azerite armor. The problem with Azerite armor is it's essentially death by 1,000 cuts. It's like a culmination of little problems. And the biggest problem of all, the one that is just like a game-breaking problem by itself, I'd say probably the only one, because the traits are passive and stuff, but like you say, some of them are really cool and really fun, and that's great. And many of them are very desirable, which is what you want in gear that you're getting from raids and stuff. So in many ways that works. The problem with Azerite armor was you were always trying to get the exact same traits. So you were trying to replace armor that you were wearing with the exact same armor, essentially. But a higher item level. So, and that happened not just within raid tiers, but kind of as you progressed from tier to tier as well. As soon as a new season hit, as soon as 8.2 hit, you wanted to get that trinket from Mythic Plus, and that ring from Mythic Plus, and that weapon from Mythic Plus, and the Azerite armor from Mythic Plus. You wanted to get all of that stuff all over again, the exact same items, with the exact same name, from the exact same places, but now you wanted it at the new item level. So it was a problem across gearing in BFA as a whole, but it was particularly noticeable in Azerite armor, particularly in the opening patches, where not only were you trying to get the same armor again with the same traits, but when you did get it at a higher item level, it wasn't even as good straight away because you couldn't unlock all the rings because you hadn't built up your Azerite yet. So you were actually kind of, in many ways, downgrading your armor. When you got new upgrades.
You're also getting less interesting things as you leveled up your necklace, right? Like the first traits you get are typically the coolest on Azerite armor. So it was also this weird thing of, I'm not really excited that I unlock the next ring because it's a shield proc, and then it just increases the eye level, which is fine. We all want our number to be bigger, right? Everyone wants a bigger number, but it's just not that exciting. So I completely.
I think it's one of the biggest challenges facing Shadowlands as well, because obviously Azerite armor isn't going to exist in Shadowlands, so that problem isn't there. But the problem of going into Mythic Plus and refarming all of the same gear all over again with the same name from the same dungeons and the same drops, but just at the new season's item level, that is still going to be there, and it's something that Blizzard really need to sort out. It's like one of the biggest problems facing Shadowlands.
I mean, because they do seasons, and you say season, and I just go, oh, Diablo. Why don't they just Diablo it? Like, there's new armor now available in your Mythic runs. Like, just throw new stuff in.
Just swap it up. Like, change the transmog, change the name of the armor, change like where it drops from. So like your BIS trinket doesn't drop from this boss now. It's a different trinket and it drops from this boss, and it has a different effect. Like, that's all it would take. And I say that's a whole ton of work to replace essentially all of the gear in the game every patch. But I think it's necessary. And I think without it, it's, like, the game isn't going to get out of this like gearing rut that it's in at the moment. I think it's the biggest problem facing gearing in the game once Azerite armor has been taken out. And I think it's a serious issue, and I think it needs looking at for sure. Yeah.
So Sam's other thought / question is I would also like.
I'll carry. Well, hang on. I'm into the character of Sam now, so I can't. Just,
that's right. I mean,
when you've portrayed a character as long as this, Garrett, you can't just step out of it. Do you know one of the most painful things as a performer is when you've put so much effort into creating the character of Sam, like I just have now, to see someone just step in and assume the role is kind of heartbreaking. I don't think I can ever really see anyone play Sam again after this.
Dude, this is just such
So if you don't
Classic
mind, I'll finish
Sam
the job
right
I
now.
started here. Okay, good. I would also like your opinion. Oh, hang on. Okay. I would also like your opinion on how the systems were layered one on top of the other in this expansion. Think about asking someone to join WoW in a month when everyone will have their necks at 80, their cloaks at 15, and all essences farmed. It's designed for people not to come back. Before that, player would just need to tag along for a couple of raid clears and they'd be okay. Now gear is less important than just sheer time invested. Most of it is also time gated, so he couldn't catch up even if they wanted to. This design is so bad that 0.3 patches are usually when I go all crazy. But just the thought of having to do all of this will limit me to a handful of them. Thanks in advance. What do you think about that, Garrett?
Yes. I think we talked about this on a previous episode about how I don't think WoW is particularly alt-friendly anymore, and I don't think it's BFA fault. I think it's actually Legion's fault. I think WoW started getting really alt-unfriendly in Legion. Hell, I mean, even WoD with the Garrison, because it was just like, oh God, here we go again. Got to level up the Garrison. There's been something. Damn, yeah. Now I think about it, there's been something since Draenor that really throws a monkey wrench into just kind of getting in and enjoying your alts.
Yeah,
and I'm not thrilled. I've only really liked one of them, which was the Legion, the artifact weapons. Of the 3 expansions now that have had these major grindy experiences, the artifact weapon is the only one I liked, and even that I found abrasive in the leveling up of artifact power. It was just not. I've originally fell in love back in my day. I loved WoW for just the loot loop. I liked the loop of just grinding loot. And personally, I would like to get a little more back to that and a little away from these extraneous systems that require you to level up another number to do things efficiently. But this is also modern WoW, and again, I would like to point out that I don't think this is a BFA problem. It's just something that has come in with modern WoW with systems that some people really like, even if I don't particularly love them.
Well, I've got a slightly different attitude on, what constitutes alt-friendliness or unfriendliness to most people. And, this comes from the perspective of someone who isn't a Mythic Raider. Technically I am, because I'll go in and do like the first 3 or 4 bosses in Mythic in a tier generally. I do raid at Mythic, but I'm not like part of a Mythic guild. I wouldn't describe myself as a Mythic Raider. And so I know when most people talk about what constitutes being alt-friendly, what they mean is how quick and easy it is to catch up an alt to like essentially a raid level sort of strength and progression, ready to kind of go into raiding or play whatever content they play on their main. And that's what they mean when they talk about alt-friendliness. To me, alt-friendliness is about not how quick and easy it is, but how fun and rewarding it is to level an alt, which is similar but different. The Legion experience was not the quickest and easiest expansion to level an alt in by any means, but it was definitely the most rewarding, and it's definitely the expansion that I had the most desire and reason to level alts, because I wanted to see all of the Order Hall campaigns. I wanted to collect all of the artifact weapons and see the story behind those. I wanted to do Mage Tower on as many different alts and specs as I possibly could to collect all of those appearances. I wanted to get all of the class mounts. And that, for me, is the definition of what makes alt-friendliness. Was it the easiest expansion to catch up on alt and to get it to raid ready? Absolutely not. Was it the most fun expansion to play alts on in any other way? Yeah, probably. So that, for me, is what makes alt-friendliness. And in the short term, at least in the initial game, there was definitely an alt-friendliness in that respect to BFA as well, in that there were literally 2 stories going on in this expansion on 2 different zones. In 2 different continents. There were 3 zones that I wouldn't get to quest through properly if I didn't play a Horde character along with my Alliance character. There were war campaign missions and storylines that I wouldn't see. There were multiple, like literally 5 or 6 cinematics that I wouldn't have seen, like rendered cinematics I wouldn't have seen if I hadn't played both factions. And I think that is really important. I think that constitutes alt friendliness, having a reason to play the alts and having a reason and making the leveling experience between 110 and 120 that different and that rewarding. I think that's definitely very alt friendly. And I think BFA deserves like praise for that. When it gets to Azerite armor and Azerite and essences, obviously it gets a lot more complicated. I don't see what I do kind of see why they don't make essences account wide, but I kind of feel whatever their reasons for it and however strongly they feel about those reasons, the community kind of hates that they're not account wide so much that at this stage, just take the hit, just swallow it, just eat it, and just make them account wide. And I can see why they don't want to. It's because some of them you don't need to at all. Like some of them, the ones that you just need to go in and do some island expeditions for, or you just need to kill some people in the open world in PvP for, or you just need to get like an arena rating for. I don't think those need to be account wide at all. The ones that are painful are, you know, the rep ones, because those are very limited in how much rep you can get at any one time, and they are essentially time gated. And yeah, I can completely understand that if that's your BIS essence, it's mind-numbing and infuriating and mind-boggling that you've done it all on one character. You shouldn't have to do it again, particularly when at the beginning of this expansion in Q&As, Ian said that they were looking at the way reputation worked and that, you know, they really wanted it so that you would get any of the advantages for having max rep with certain factions, having only done that rep on one character.
Wow, way to drop the
way
ball.
The essences work. Yeah, it was a big thing. It was meant to be a major feature of BFA. They talked about it on multiple occasions, and the essences clearly go very much against that as a mission statement.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, you took my retort, which is I agree with all. There's a quality in the alt experience, at least on your second alt, if you jump factions. I think in BFA that's really strong. That's extremely strong. I agree with you until you get to alt 3, or if alt 2 is on the same faction, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But
like I say, it's in the short term.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on Legion. I loved playing alts in Legion for my own enjoyment. I hated it if I actually wanted to raid. It was horrible. But essences are just such a sore point for me in BFA, which is a problem, which I think is a compounded failure for something I see as a compounded failure, because I look at essences as, oh my God, you fixed Azerite. Oh no, never mind. You made this excruciatingly painful and kind of a mind-numbing issue. But
that only applies to alts now, and I think this is something that should be said about
again, personal gripe. It applies to me because I kind of took a break at the beginning of 8.2 to go play Classic.
Okay. Well, that's fair. But weren't we literally just creaming ourselves about how great it is when like progression is kind of not as linear as it is, and how like
but essences are extremely linear. It is like there is one way to do this.
We know, because we were talking about how stuff from previous patches stays relevant in new patches. So you were upset because you came back and you had to go and do 8.2 content to get your essences.
Yes.
Again. And that's exactly what we were just praising from old WoW. Like the idea that just because a new patch comes out with new content, it doesn't make the old progression that you could do in the old patches irrelevant. We were literally just saying how great that was, and now you're complaining about it.
Well, it's all anecdotal, because I don't think no one's like, I need to go back to freaking not Najatar, Eternal Palace. No one's doing it. Like, I just can't go and get those essences. So clearly there wasn't enough there for the majority of the player base, because I'm just sitting there going, well, shit, I can't get a group.
Or everyone's just like more on it than you. But no, I happen to personally agree. I think that as someone that, you know, didn't take a break in 8.2, and I think this about, you know, the artifact system and the Azerite system as well. Because that's something that people complain about a lot, is, you know, the perpetual progression of those systems. On my main, I really like it. I really like the idea of like an infinite progression system on my main. It's only when it comes to alts that becomes a problem. And when 8.2 launched and all the essences came out, and you had all these different things to do to get all of these different essences, because what the essences is that they're gear. They're really good gear. You know, each essence that you get is another piece of cool gear that you can swap in and out. And that's really good. And it was deterministic rewards for performing deterministic actions, which again is something that we complain that WoW doesn't have enough of in its gear at the moment. We complain about RNG in gear, and then we're given deterministic rewards at the end of doing certain things that are hard and take a while, and we complain about that as well. And I completely understand it on an alt. You're absolutely right. I don't think that any like previous content should be, you should have to do it to get an essence in 8.3. I think like any essence that relies on stuff that you have to do in 8.2 to get, I think that should not be the case. I think they should find a way of putting it into the new content. But the stuff like just killing some people in war mode, just doing some island expeditions, just doing like getting some arena ranking or something like that, I think that's perfectly okay to still have.
I think that works better for sure. Although again, if I need an essence that's like behind PvP for PvE, I think that's a failure of itemization. But
I guess. But then I've also have to say I do need conflict and strife like most people, and I've quite enjoyed doing arenas to get it, because I wouldn't have done, like last time I did an arena was when I wanted to get my hippo, and I really enjoyed it then, but had no reason to do it afterwards because I'm not going to do it for fun.
Well, if you haven't figured out by now that I really value being able to play WoW the way I feel like playing it, then I guess
true. And if I didn't have conflict and strife, then I'd put something else in it in that minor slot, and it wouldn't affect my game too much, but I would know that I wasn't playing absolutely 100% min-max optimally, which I don't in other ways anyway. So for me, I like having the challenge of having to go and do those things. But you're right. The problem comes in catching it up with alts. And I don't know how you make that better. Shadowlands is kind of is taking a different approach with it. Supposedly. So I guess we'll see. It'd be interesting to see how catching up with covenants that you've already progressed through on one character is comparable. I know they're doing the thing where you will choose your covenant right at the very beginning and on an alt, and you can start progressing while you're leveling on that, which is a really interesting take. But I wonder how much more efficient that's going to actually turn out to be. So yeah, I think the interesting part of this question is where it talks about systems on top of systems, and I'm not sure if BFA is a really great example of that, simply because it was never meant to be that way. Like essences, we've been explicitly told that essences weren't part of the plan. They were a fix for Azerite armor that didn't work. So the plan wasn't to have system on top of system on top of system. It just turned out that way because the first system they made was broken and needed fixing. So that's why we get all these different systems. Like I'm sure corruption and the 8.3 stuff and the cloak would have been part of it later on, but we'd have had one less system on top of other systems to contend with. So that only really happened in BFA because it went wrong.
Yeah.
But the question remains, how would you have kind of progression in different tiers and different seasons without introducing a new system? And this is something we talked about on my stream quite a lot. And I don't know if I've ever talked about this with you, Garrett, but here's my idea. How would you feel? And I'm really interested to hear your like just off the top of your head reaction to this, like your visceral emotional reaction. How would you feel if 9.0 launched and the normal thing happens? You've got to go from it's going to be from 60 to 70 or 50 to 60. It's going to be from 50 to 60 Shadowlands, isn't it? At max level. You're going to, if you're max level when Shadowlands starts, you'll be at level 50 and you're going to have to progress to level 60. I think it is.
Okay.
Maybe something like that.
Yep.
Okay. So that happens. And then you get to the end game and you start all your end game stuff and you're doing your covenant stuff and you're progressing through your covenant, getting all that stuff, and getting more things. And you're going into Torghast and you're doing your Torghast runs. And then like there's some story that's happening. And then like, the raid comes out and you go into your vampire castle and you do your raid. And then what happens? How would you feel if 9.1 or 9.2 comes along and you go to like a different island, which is going to be very easily done in Shadowlands because they're infinite and they're all kind of like non-interconnected spaces. The great thing about Shadowlands is you can have any new zone anywhere without any explanation. You can just go, hey, we're going to this death realm now. Off we go. New zone. There it is. Boom. Awesome. Easy as pie. So how about you go to a new zone and it's full of like super bad baddies and super new loot and everything like that. But also the level cap is raised from 60 to 65. like in patch 9.2. So you get to like max level in 9.0 and you play through all the end game stuff, maybe of that and of 9.1 when that comes along. But then when 9.2 comes along, they throw in an extra 5 levels. So yeah, you're replacing all your gear and getting better gear, but you have to get to the new level cap to do that, which better explains why you're getting all this better gear in the first place. It better explains why all these baddies are super badass, because they're 5 levels above everything you've been fighting at max level before. And so, obviously, with that leveling experience comes all of the story and questing that you would expect, but half of it, because it's only 5 levels rather than the 10 that you did at the beginning of the expansion. Because everyone loves leveling, Garrett. Like the leveling experience at the beginning of an expansion is always a lot of people's favorite thing about it. It's the reason people loved Classic so much when that came out, really, because like the end game of Classic is fun, but when people were thinking about the fun they were going to have in Classic, it was all the leveling that they were going to do, right? And all of that excitement and sort of like that it's a very like marked and obvious power progression. There's kind of like, no greater way of showing power than literally going up a level and being able to equip gear that you couldn't before. So it kind of works as a perpetual kind of gearing process, because like actually going from level 65 to 66 and now you can put on that 66 level helm is a lot more satisfying than I've got to fill up this Azerite bar so that I can, like unlock this new thing and empower this in a certain way. The leveling in WoD was even fun, and that was a terrible expansion. How would you feel? How would you feel if like a mid expansion patch ups the level cap?
I think if I was Blizzard, I'd be terrified of this idea. Because like they're doing the squish to make leveling feel rewarding, right?
Yeah,
like that was a big thing. There's a lot of emphasis put on that at this past year's BlizzCon, and like we're just get back to level bloat very quickly. And if all we're doing is leveling to equip new gear and not actually getting like new talents or abilities or anything of that nature.
Oh, I'm not saying you wouldn't get new talents or abilities though. I'm saying like, imagine the level cap going up with everything that implies.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about it just feels weird and wrong. But also maybe it's just me being a curmudgeon in this kind of arbitrary history of World of Warcraft that when you hit max in an expansion, that's the way we have done it for years, so say we all. Like I don't, this is like, it just feels off. I don't.
Okay, so it's like people saying in the chat that it feels arbitrary, right? So here's and I don't care if
I think you can make the argument
it's
that
not a hill that I want to die on. It's just an idea that
I
I'm
think
exploring.
you can make the argument that any leveling system, be it reputation, Azerite level or level,
well, I would argue
arbitrary.
that leveling is a lot less arbitrary than any end game system. Like, are you seriously like telling me that leveling in Legion felt more arbitrary than, and like all the fun that came in leveling to max level in Legion felt more arbitrary than the Netherlight Crucible? Or like, like these are all things that are tacked on because they need something for you to do. Leveling takes all of that kind of just thinking of things for things' sake out of it, because it's like very much a recognizable kind of like obvious way to progress. So
it's so wild. Like I almost just want them to try it. Because
I want to try it just
because it would add an interesting breath like between like raids essentially, right? And who knows what the trickle down effect would be on things like PvP and whatnot. I mean, you could continue to just PvP, but at some point other people would start showing up that are higher level with better gear.
Yeah,
I don't know how that would like feel
if like if the Azerite cap goes up or the artifact weapon cap goes up. What is that but just not a rubbish version of the level cap going up? Like a rubbish and non-satisfying version of the level cap going up. Imagine if it actually was the level cap going up, and with like questing and going through that level experience again in a new zone with new baddies and stuff, for the express reason that now you can equip new max level gear, which is higher than the old max level gear.
I would probably like it better, but a lot of this is... Because what's interesting about the way current endgame works and pretty much has worked forever is outside of a system like Essences or Legion Artifact Weapon and stuff like that, new patch launches, if you're up to date on gear, be it through raiding or mythic dungeons or whatever, you just keep going. You can just walk into the next raid and go, as long as there's not some sort of system that you need to go through to unlock the raid, right? God, we haven't had attunements in forever, and I actually rather enjoyed attunements.
I like attunements, you see, and I see this as another attunement.
Which seem, you could argue, are arbitrary.
Yeah.
Right? But there was, I don't know, I bonded with a lot of my guild mates through attunements. It was, fond memories of it. It was a forced, arbitrary lock that I felt kind of made guilds get together and work together to, to get the key to Karazhan or whatever it was you were getting attuned for. So yeah, I don't know. I would probably like this better personally, but at the end of the day, I don't know. It would disrupt endgame in such a new way that I don't know. Like, it's so wild. Like, sure, try it. Let's do it. Let's just see how it goes. Like, what happens to the race of the world first? Because suddenly there's, the raid is there, but we can't do it because we got to get 5 more levels.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that should be a case with new raids when they open anyway. I say when you release 8.3, you don't wait 2 weeks or a week before you open that raid. You open the raid instantly, but you put an attunement in it, so most people won't get in there for a week.
Yeah, there's just something
that adds like an extra spice to it, and I like that.
Yeah, I think it would certainly be more work for them because in a leveling aspect, we're used to a little more linearity to a leveling experience. Like, you level through a zone, if you just I'm gonna finish this quest, there'll be a new quest that takes me to a new area that I complete that gives me a new quest.
And I think for the work involved, like, the payback isn't enough.
Yeah,
but if you could take out like dev time and dev resources from the equation, and if you could say, would it just be a fun idea to do this? I think it'd be super fun. You're right. I don't think it could happen, because to make the leveling experience kind of fulfilling and what we want from a leveling experience, even just for 5 levels or so, like in a mid patch, I think would require far too many resources than it's worth. I don't think it would ever happen.
I mean, Argus, in a way, found a way to do that without new levels. It time gated, scary word, but it's a tool. It time gated, it's different areas, and those different areas felt very much like leveling, albeit over a certain amount of times.
And that felt arbitrary to me. If you were getting levels from it, wouldn't it have felt better?
Yeah, I mean, now we're just having a discussion about gamification. Like, what feels rewarding versus what feels arbitrary. It's all arbitrary. At some point, a decision was made that we're going to stop you from doing one thing until you've completed another. It's all, at the end of the day, arbitrary. But what is fun? What do we value? What gives us a good time versus what makes us feel like we're doing a chore? And so to that, I say, yeah, I'm with you. I like leveling more than world quests, daily quests, doing the same zone over and over and over again. So, yeah, it's
all I know is when I go back and I start leveling a new character, I start leveling a new alt, I am happier going through that questing content while I'm leveling than I am having to go to Najatar and complete all that questing content, or start 8.3 and do all that questing content where I'm not getting levels. Like, the fact that when I'm doing all that questing content on an alt, I'm getting levels for it at first makes it a lot easier to repeat that content than when I'm not getting levels from it. So people say that it would be horrible for alts. I'm not saying you're wrong, because this has never happened, so I don't know, but I'd be interested to see if it was actually worse for alts, or I've got a sneaky suspicion it would actually make the process of going through like that big quest line at the beginning of 8.3 a lot more satisfying for alts, because you're not just trying to get it out of the way just so you can start your cloak stuff. You are also leveling up in it as well. There's more than a reason to do it than to just get it out of the way. So I'm not saying, like I say, I don't actually care on anyone's view on this. I find it like interesting how instantly against the idea a lot of people are, without kind of really thinking it through. And that's quite interesting to me, but it's certainly not something that I'm going to advocate for or push for, but I just think it's an interesting idea. And like the fact is, every system we get piled on top of another system with a new patch or a new season essentially is a new leveling system anyway. And some arbitrary kind of power up to this new max level so you can do all the cool stuff, but it's just not as fun as actual leveling. So my idea is just like, why not just make it leveling instead? Because that's more fun in my experience. But I like I say, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna die on that hill.
You seem very passionate about it. I mean, you're.
I'm not going to die on the hill, but I will sit at the bottom of the hill and go, that looks like a fun hill to climb.
I know. I feel like you're at the top of the hill waving a flag. I mean, if someone came with a knife, maybe you'd be like,
"Oh, top of that hill." Like I say, I don't know how it would work out, but I'd be quite interested to see.
I think you're inviting people to come try and kill you on the hill, and if they did, then maybe you would move on to a different hill.
I'm saying, like, you know what? I know you hate hills, but maybe you should try walking up this hill before you slag it off. It's quite nice up here.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would personally enjoy it better, but that would really upset a lot of
people are saying,
things.
like, I think that someone in the chat saying, I think the problem with leveling is fundamentally different from Endgame. Yeah, because we make that differentiation. What if you mix them up? They wouldn't be two different games at this point. So anyway, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
You think you want hills, but you don't.
All right. Next email comes from Mad Ags, who writes, "Hey guys, congrats on the success of your new podcast. It's well deserved and has immediately hit my list of favorite WoW content, outside of the game itself. I have a question for you lads. This one story thing I've been hype AF about in WoW didn't happen to me until Legion, and I've played this game since its beta. From Denmark, no less, even though I wasn't supposed to, and it wasn't supposed to be something you could do. Oh, that's great. Awesome. Good on you, Mad Ags. Anyway, every time Garrett waxes poetic about Arthas or Taliesin gets dreamy-eyed about old gods and tentacles, I think of my favorite moment in WoW, which is Illidan smacking the smug Naru like it deserved. And my new big fascination in the story of WoW is the vilification of the light. Or shall we call it the doubt that the Legion stories can cast on the purity of motives behind the light. I love that. I still can't believe they went in that direction, and I want more. So here is my question. Is Shadowlands going to give us more villainous light stories? Thanks for reading my ramble, and thanks for the podcast, guys. I really liked this too, and wasn't so sure it was a direction they were going to go either. But also it's like, so, like for Illidan specifically, like saying like, F you, Naru, I'm just gonna destroy you. Like that is the most on-brand Illidan shit ever. I should have seen it coming. And I was in the moment as it looked like Illidan was being light forged. I started cursing at my monitor. I'm like, if you give me some cleansed, non-edgelordy Illidan, I'm uninstalling the day and I'm never forgiving Blizzard. And then he murdered the Naru, and I'm like, this is the most anime ass on point shit ever. I love it. I don't like the Draenei. They're too Boy Scouty. It bores me. Even though I love paladins. There's something about paladins in World of Warcraft that I just love piloting, and I have re-fallen in love with it. My aesthetic is Death Knight, but they just can't make Frost fun to play. So I'm just continuing to play paladin. Yeah, I really like this. And I also like the other ways light has been played with in the past for edgelordy, villainous flavors, specifically bringing paladins to the Blood Elves. Now they've really walked that back, but when Blood Elves were originally introduced to the horror through paladins, they had essentially stolen a Naru and were torturing it for their power, and that was just awesome. That's great. What a great way to kind of spin that on its head. So yeah, as for Shadowlands, I don't know about villainous light stories. At the moment, there doesn't seem to be a lot of space for it, but they've also haven't done much with Kalia, so who knows?
I think it's impossible that we won't see that in Shadowlands.
Really?
I think Ian has said himself, like the next, and Chronicle very clearly sets this up. When the first Chronicle comes out, I think people kind of underestimate how important it was, because it kind of just like laid out in very clear terms where the story was going. And it did that in the short term. It said, okay, so this is the story behind Sargeras, and this is what's happened with the Titans. And it set that up beautifully for the Titans' return. And, but on top of that, it also gave us the light versus the void as the actual big struggle in the cosmos of World of Warcraft. And that's something that is clearly going to be a much bigger deal going forward. And you're seeing elements of that now. We've had a nice setup of the Void and a slight introduction into more Void stuff with Xalatath, who is of the Void. We don't know what Xalatath is. She's definitely not a Void god or a Void lord, I don't think, but she's also, I suspect, a pay grade higher than the old gods. She's clearly a part of Void, for want of a better word, society, in a way that the old gods aren't. The old gods are just fleshy slaves, essentially. They're monsters, and they're like uber intelligent by our standards, and they're uber powerful by our standards, but they're essentially just dry bits of skin that the Void Lords just flick off into the cosmos to try and like take over some planets. They're basically a sneeze, If I'm on a bus and I sneeze, like tiny little germs go around and infect other people. And that's what the old gods are. A Void Lord sneezed them into existence to try and specifically infect Titan world souls. And seeing Xalatath and the way she represents something that we've never seen in the Void before is definitely kind of setting up a more intricate kind of Void society that we're going to see later on. And all of the stuff with Zira and the Light and Illidan is definitely kind of just reminding us that the light isn't inherently good. And that's the thing about WoW in general. No one is inherently kind of, with exceptions, but essentially no one's really good or evil. Whether we want to kill someone in WoW and whether we're going to fight someone in WoW, it depends entirely on whether our objectives line up with theirs. And if they don't, then we go and fight them. And if they do, we might fight with them to take out the people whose like objectives don't. It's hard to see how our objectives could ever really line up with the Void over the Light, because even if the Light really did want to make everyone light slaves and light zealots, that's one thing, and it's not great.
Which there's a lot of signs pointing to it does.
Maybe it does. I'm going to come back to the Illidan thing in a bit. Maybe it does. Let's say it does, just for the sake of argument. That's one thing, and it's pretty bad. But at the end of the day, the Void want to literally consume our reality, and they want to destroy literally everything. So, they're not like two sides of the same coin. They're two coins, and one will destroy literally all life, and one will just want to make you a zealot. And they're both bad, but one is probably a bit worse than the other. And it's hard to see how, I'm sure we could find a happy medium with the Light somewhere along the line, and most characters in the game kind of do. With the Void, it's one or the other. Either we defeat it or we all die. It's as simple as that. So it's hard to see how our interests could really ever align with the Void. But who knows? Maybe that will change, and maybe Xalatath is kind of the key to that.
Well, and so are Shadow Priests and Illyria.
Interesting. I wouldn't get too attached to Illyria, Garrett, on that subject.
But she's so much more interesting than Turalian.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the real problem here, is because I always thought, if they are going to do a Light versus Void, say, big, I suspect it'd be more than expansion, but if they did kind of take it out, because I am so ready for spaceships and stuff again now. After Shadowlands, I'm going to be so ready for going out into space and going to Void planets and going to Light planets. And let's say the Covenant system in Shadowlands works really, really well, and they want to expand that going forward. Like choosing your side between Light and Void would be the perfect way to do that. And like it's a bigger, more complex Covenant system. You choose, are you Light or are you Void, in the same way that you choose between Bastion and Venthyr, in Shadowlands. That could be setting that up really well. But of course, the problem is everyone would choose Void, because Void is cool and Light is boring. And I say that as a priest.
Look at us, two folks that want to be edgelords but just can't stop praising the Light.
It's true. And like when one of the greatest things Chronicle did was, and Legion did, was really kind of rebuild the priest lore, and the kind of all of the concept behind just the mechanics of playing a priest in WoW, and the idea that a discipline priest is finding discipline. Like the discipline kind of meant, you will take the pain and you will put shields on and you'll just live with it. That's discipline right there. But it became the discipline of balancing the Light and the Void, which I found really, really interesting. I really liked how Shadow Priests were like giving themselves unto the Void and kind of really skirting that very dangerous kind of line, which is, again, surrender to madness. The Void kills you at the end of that thing, whereas Light doesn't do that. It might have its own kind of drawbacks and things, but at the end of the day, it's not going to consume you in the way that Void wants to. And like the Illidan thing I find really interesting. We've got a meme on our on our stream, which is like, because I love that moment as well. And I think that cinematic is awesome and wonderful. And it's kind of when we started doing cinematic analysis on our channel and things like that. But it does kind of make me laugh that Illidan has spent the entire expansion, like the whole expansion, and in Burning Crusade as well, going, I have sacrificed everything to defeat the Legion, and I will sacrifice anything to defeat the Legion. Nothing is too dear to me that I won't sacrifice it to defeat the Legion. I will do literally anything to defeat the Legion. And Zera's like, cool, if I make you Lightforged, you can go along and defeat the Legion much easier. He's like, oh, I won't do that.
I would do anything for love.
I would do anything else, but I won't do that. Are you sure though, Illidan? Because I'm Zera and I can see the future. And if you become Lightforged right now, you could beat the Legion, and maybe you won't even get a huge sword put in your planet. Maybe you'll defeat them that much easier that you don't even get a huge sword put in your planet and cause BFA. How do you feel about that? No, I won't do that.
That's Illidan,
but
though.
You just said you do. You just said that you do anything, though. Yeah, but I won't do that, though. Well, that's not anything, then, is it, Illidan? That's not anything. I am my scars. Okay, fine. You'll lose your scars, but you just said you do anything. I won't do that.
Illidan is the embodiment of why we should fear the light, though, because you sacrifice your individuality and become your realm.
It was because of Zera that we even rescued Illidan in the first place. If it hadn't been for Zera, he would have been under the control of Gul'dan at the end of and that's why
Illidan is cool. That's why Vegeta is cool. That's why whatever the Naruto version of Vegeta is, I don't know. I never watched it because why would I watch a worse version of Dragon Ball Z?
I'm just putting it out there that I think it's just quite funny. And you can see the Illidan as Meatloaf emotes in this chat right now, which is an official emote on our Twitch stream because of this. I just think it's funny that he can spend every single moment of his life going, I'll do literally anything. Anything that helps me defeat the Legion, I'll do it. But except this thing that I'm being explicitly told will help me defeat the Legion. I won't do that. I won't do it. I know, man. He's all talk and no trousers. That's all I'm saying. He's all talk and only trousers. He's all talk and no top.
Hey, if you had amazing chest tattoos like that, would you want to cover them up?
If I had a 12-pack, yeah, absolutely, I would never wear a top.
If I had a 12-pack and glowing chest tattoos, I would get my groceries shirtless.
Yeah.
And they would let me.
I'm not saying Illidan was wrong to destroy Zera. She clearly, she'd just been put back together. She clearly wasn't in her right mind. She was clearly she literally looks like the overattached girlfriend meme in that cinematic. And I don't think that's by mistake. I think they're trying to tell us something creatively there. And I'm not saying he's wrong to have blown her up, and it was really cool when he did. I just find it funny. I'll do anything to defeat the Legion, but I won't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
James from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm not familiar with that server. Says, dudes, congrats on the rad fucking podcast. Hadn't heard of Garrett before this, but I am a Patreon member of Twitch for TD. Just got to say, love your vibe, Garrett. Started going back and listening to the instance. Great stuff, man. Quick question. The other day, I was listening to an episode of WoW Killer and Taliesin was talking about how he had some special trick for a Garrosh lockout to farm the shoulders. Do you recall what episode it was? I was thinking at the time I should write that down, and now I've completely forgotten. So
I will tell you the trick right now, and I'll make it very quick. Don't worry. Okay, so this is episode 8. This is where you'll find the trick right here, right now. So what you do is, this is the way I do it. There are other ways of doing it as well, but this is the easiest way to do it if you can afford it. Which I can because, I'm a world famous YouTuber. So I have I actually have much more than this, but I have 2 separate accounts, okay? And one account, I have a character on there whose sole purpose is to keep the lockout on heroic Garrosh in Siege of Orgrimmar extended every single week. That's the reason they exist. And they sit outside the entrance to Siege of Orgrimmar, and that's their entire reason for existence. That's why I keep the subscription on that account. Simple as that. And then when I log onto my main account and I want to farm the shoulders, the Tusks of Manoroth, which have a 0.1% drop rate, but which you can roll for. Okay, so this is the thing. I do my I run it every week, or I used to. I'm a bit off the boil at the moment. But you can run it every week with your plate wearers, and try and get and that's, by far the highest chance of actually getting it because you're guaranteed loot drops there. But there's nothing to stop you going in, killing Garrosh, and using a reroll token on it forever. So this is how people build up thousands and thousands of kills on Garrosh in like a few days, because the amount of times that you can go into, it will let you go into an instance, is the amount of times you can kill Garrosh and roll for those tusks. And so I go on my farm character, which is a Fury Warrior, and I have my laptop, because I don't multi-box, so I have my laptop next to me, and I invite my Fury Warrior, and I accept on my main computer, and I run in, and I use all the speed potions I can, because it's even with the lockout, it's a really long walk to actually get to Garrosh, and there are a few mobs you have to kill. And I start killing Garrosh, and I've worked out that there's a certain point in the fight where I can leave the group mid-fight, because you have like 30 seconds then before you're kicked out of the instance if you leave the group. So about a certain point through the fight, I'm fighting, and I leave the group. And then if I've timed it right, I'll have time to kill Garrosh and roll on the loot and loot him with a couple of seconds to spare before I'm then kicked out of the instance, because it saves running out of the instance, because that like doubles the amount of time that this run takes. So then you get kicked out of the instance, you appear again just outside the entrance to Siege of Orgrimmar, and you just repeat the exact same thing all over again. So you do have to go to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms and farm a lot of frogs so that you can buy all the reroll tokens you're going to need, because you need obviously hundreds and thousands of them, because it usually takes... I know people that have done it in like obviously one run. I know people that have done it in like a couple of hundred. I know people that have done thousands and still haven't had the drop. I'm personally on over 1,000, haven't had the shoulders. So as long as I've got the rerolls, I can go there and I can run it as many times as I possibly want, all in a row. And it's a really good way of just like zoning out for a couple of hours and just killing the thing. And it's brilliant. Yeah, you can do it without 2 accounts, but it's a much bigger faff. And if you can afford to do 2 accounts, that's how I do it. And it's a lot easier and actually quicker as well, obviously, if you've just got like another account open on a laptop next to you. So yeah, that's what I do.
That is absolutely insane.
Yes. But of course now I'm a streamer, so I could just put plate runs together and go and do it and like let people give it to me when it drops. That's how Asmongold got his. So I could just do that. I could take a leaf out of the streamer book and do it.
That would yeah.
But yeah, that's the trick. That's the trick. And one day I'll get the shoulders, and I'll be able to show them off.
Yeah. All right. Final email of the episode, Taliesin. We got a story. We got a story from Sarenin Sparks, who was inspired by our G-Quit. Well, your G-Quit story. Do you want to field this one?
Sure thing. Hey, Garrett and Taliesin. Hey, when you were talking about your G-Quit stories on the last episode, it reminded me of mine. I was a holy prop paladin on Silvermoon EU, and my guild was progressing through Icecrown Citadel at the time. The guild leader, who was also the raid leader, was on holiday, and the second in command stepped in as a raid leader for that time. Like King John in Robin Hood. Sorry, Richard Lionheart away on crusades. King John steps up. Which makes you Robin Hood, Sarenin Sparks. I don't know, I haven't read the story, maybe it doesn't. The raid leader and I never got along, but being one of the core raiders, I didn't really have a choice but to go with them. Normally, I was the off-tank, but that night, we were missing a healer, so I was asked to go holy. I never mind this as I like healing, but especially since I needed a drop from Marrowgar, I doubly took the opportunity. We defeat Marrowgar with ease, and the item I needed drops. Needless to say, I was pretty excited and rolled for main. Now, in the raid group, we had another paladin who was Rhett, who rolled for the off-roll. The raid leader gave the drop to this paladin on the off-roll. I spoke up in character, saying, I rolled for main, after which the raid leader told me to shut the F up. As I kept arguing my case, I was given the ultimatum of dealing with it or getting kicked. I pulled her, you can't fire me, I quit on the raid and promptly left the raid and the guild right after. Love the show, wish you both good luck on your journey.
Oh, was this the choker? Was this the choker that had dodge and parry? I bet it was the choker.
I mean, the way you tell that story, Serenin, makes me instantly suspicious because you sound 100% absolutely completely in the right. And as a human being, I know that never ever happens. Like you sound like you don't just sound in the right, Serenin. You sound like a put upon, wronged saint.
I'm gonna give Serenin the benefit of the doubt because don't we all sound very in the right when we tell a last straw story?
Yeah, well, exactly.
When it's been like, just
I guess so.
It's the breaking point.
With the evidence presented, Serenin, you was wronged, and you is well out of that guild, Serenin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I already had friction with my raid / guild leader, yeah, with the leader, and this happened in the way you told it, yeah, I'd be out of there. I'd be like, okay, cool, see ya, bye, enjoy. Yeah.
And imagine when the actual raid leader came back after their little holiday or whatever, and was like, hey, how'd it all go while I was gone? And the replacement raid leader has to be, oh, really good. I'm afraid I lost our best holy paladin. Sorry about that.
Well, it sounds like they lost their tank because they were having
tank. Sorry.
Yeah, having to flex for that evening. Yeah, it's that stinks. A lot many people. We got so many tweets, man. After you told that story, of folks being like little short stories. People, your story really resonated with people.
Yeah, well, I think we've all been there, haven't we?
Most of us have. Yeah, if you
maybe not in the exact circumstances that I described, but essentially.
Yeah, we at some point, if you've been in a guild long enough, everyone's got a guild friction story. Real quick, I'll pull this out of chat room. Marissa Can says, never played the game. I'd love to learn about the story. Where do I start? What do I see or read? Thanks in advance. Novel and Chronicle, maybe. Maybe pick up a Chronicle book.
I hear like Taliesin and Evertal do some pretty good lore videos as well.
Yeah, they do too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Funny, quite easy, quite accessible, quite funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and the guy has got a voice like melted sex, and it just feels nice to listen to. I hear that's what I heard. I mean, that's what I heard.
He also does a podcast with a permanent guest that does a pretty good job. But yeah, no, I mean, you're when you talk about lore on your channel and also Novel, you're both pretty good about talking about lore that pertains to things that are currently of interest in game. So yeah. And if you're only interested in the lore, then that is a big, thick wedge to be getting into. I would definitely recommend learning about the lore as you play the game, because that way you're kind of meeting characters and questing with characters, and you're kind of picking up bits and bobs there, and it makes kind of reading about those characters easier because you have something to kind of hang it on and you have something to associate it with. You're not having to picture those characters in your mind or whatever. You know what they look like and what they sound like, and you've had some kind of experience with them before. So that I would, if you really want to get into the lore, I would recommend playing the game as well as kind of reading sort of supplements. They've told so many stories about so many characters. There's no one easy answer. But it gets easier.
Because I don't actually think that Chronicle is a very good way to get into the lore. I think Chronicle is kind of made for people who know the game quite well already, and it's a really good resource for them. But it's kind of like reading all of the supplementary like appendixes and stuff in Lord of the Rings literature before reading the Lord of the Rings. Like it explains a lot of the background and stuff that happens in Lord of the Rings, and it like expands the universe and the world loads and loads. But if you read it before you read Lord of the Rings, you wouldn't care anyway. So
I think that's fair. But I think if you're playing World of Warcraft right now, it's a great read. Because it explains the Black Empire.
Yes.
So I think to piggyback off of your suggestion of, well, play WoW, and if you get interested in something, then just go digging. Right now, if you're playing right now and doing N'Zoth stuff, read the Black Empire section of Chronicle. It's a really quick read. It's only a few pages, and yeah, it's. I also kind of point to it as it's surmountable. If you're like, I like Arthas. Like I love Arthas. I still haven't read the novel. It's a long book. I just haven't gotten around to it.
I'll do it as soon as I get to max level in Classic. Be the first thing I do, read that novel. But I'd also recommend genuinely, and this isn't just because it's where, our area of work or anything, but I'd also recommend, not being afraid to kind of throw yourself into the online community and just like be part of the YouTube community or the Twitch community and just stuff like that. Because, just the amount that you pick up about story and lore and characters and stuff by just being part of a community and being on message boards and things like that. And, I think that's just kind of surrounding yourself with it is really important. Yep. You kind of have to know that you like it already in advance to do that kind of stuff, I guess. But that's when you really start learning, I guess.
Yep. I'm personally a big fan of like Wowpedia, WowWiki, because if I'm really interested in something, I can pull up the page and it gives me cliff notes. But if I go to the bottom, it shows the sources. And that's when I find out, oh, there's a cinematic I missed, or there was a quest line I missed, or there was a book I missed.
Absolutely.
And then I can choose my own adventure on where I want to go digging. That's
true.
kind of how
and I've gone down like I have with Wikipedia in general. I've gone down the WoW wiki rabbit hole many a time, and you can be in there for hours without even realizing it.
Absolutely. Or you are there for hours because you're writing a 10-minute cold open to a Nazoth episode of a podcast. And
I told you, Garrett. I said you should have just said, Nazoth is a tentacly boy. We love him. And that would have been it. But no, you had to go and write an entire proper intro.
I wanted to get moody.
Yeah, I was like, dude, just go moody music. Nazoth is a tentacly boy. Oh, shit. Look at the tentacle. Look at those. Look at the tentacle. Oh, my God. They're huge. That would have been awesome. That's all the intro we needed. But no, you had to go and put the proper work into it.
We just end with you yelling, praise him. That would be it. That'd be the end of it. Well, wonderful. Anyways, thank you everybody for writing in. Obviously, we didn't get to all the emails today. It's that will probably not be a surmountable task at some point. But keep writing in wowkillercast@gmail.com. Taliesin, we got our custom URL, folks. If you would rather consume this podcast through YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/wowkiller.
Nice.
Wasn't taken. No one took it. I can't believe this name has worked out as well as it has.
If I was launching a new MMO, I would definitely take the URL WowKiller. Definitely. That'd be one of the first URLs I took.
Well,
whatever the name of the MMO was, if I was working on it, I'd be like, okay, we need to grab WowKiller. That's what we need. Yeah. Well, there we are. That's awesome. That's great. We are now officially the killers of WoW.
We are.
Feels good, doesn't it?
We are.
Do you feel really important? I do. I feel super important right now.
I'm just stoked that when you Google WoW Killer, we're the first thing that comes up.
Oh wait, maybe that's just you. Hang on.
I did it in an incognito window.
Than you. As someone who's done much less work on this podcast than you on my computer, let me have a look. WoW Killer. Did you mean WoW Killer? I mean, that's what I wrote. WoW Killer, a World of Warcraft podcast. There we are.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Done.
And then the second result is a Reddit thread called "Why is there no WoW Killer?" Time for me to get on that Reddit thread. Au contraire, mon ami. There is. Here is our custom YouTube URL. What do you think about that, eh?
There it is. That's from January of 2019. This show didn't exist yet. That's why, because time is linear.
We talked about it, though. It existed in our mind's eye. Well, I'll get on there and I'll be like, good news, everyone. WoW Killer now exists.
Well, Tally, if folks are not already familiar with where else they can find your work outside of this here podcast, where can people go?
Taliesin and Evertel on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. Be there. Or don't. It's fine, but you should.
You should go check it out. I rather enjoyed your most recent weekly reset. I was giggling to myself while watching it last night.
Good. That's the reaction we look for. Mild giggling in private by yourself. In the dead of night, alone.
It was the last thing I watched before I went to bed. I was in
It's our target audience.
I was in bed and I was like, oh, I haven't watched this yet. And put that on. And then I was like, I could watch some Battleground streams, but I'm just going to go sleep. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go sleep.
You know it.
I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. All the podcasts, this one included, can be found over at amove.tv. That's AMOVE.tv. Go there, check it out. Huge thanks also to Andrew Allen for our outro music. You are possibly hearing as I say this because it's out in post. Check out his work over at andrewallenmusic.com. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Reminder, no episode next week as I will be traveling. And so we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the next episode of WoW Killer. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Thanks, Sam. It was lovely being you.